Hello, this is Chris Kelleher of the Delaware County ARES Group, W3CTK. And today, just going to go over a brief overview of what SKYWARN is, and then also on the DelcoARES.net website, the SKYWARN section, and different resources that are available in there. So if you go to Delco ARES, right in one of the main sections is SKYWARN, and that'll take you to the SKYWARN page, and there's just some brief information here. So what is SKYWARN? Ironically, I just got an alert about a hurricane. So SKYWARN is a self-contained network of weather spotters that are sponsored and trained by the National Weather Service. National Weather Service is part of NOAA, which is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association, or something like that, and they're part of the Commerce Department. Many spotters are amateur radio operators who submit observations via radio, although they don't have to be, but it's a common pairing. And then compiled observations are forwarded to the meteorologist at local NWS offices, and that data is then incorporated into reports and forecasts. Volunteers collect on-the-spot weather observations in localized areas that assist the meteorologist, helping to ensure that the forecasts are more accurate and warnings are more timely. So basically, the whole reason, the National Weather Service started SKYWARN, and one of the big benefits is it gives them confirmation of what's happening, and it also can give them more specific details about certain things, especially when it comes to highly localized events or things that may not show up on radar as clearly or as quickly as they would want to. Radar is a great tool, and they have plenty of awesome tools at the NWS to make their jobs more efficient and more accurate. Things like radar. However, radar is a radio-based technology, and just like our handheld radios, it depends on line of sight. So they can't always see what exactly is happening at ground level, and that may come into play during the winter months, when you might have different temperatures in the different layers in the atmosphere, and precipitation could be coming down. It could be rain, could be freezing, could be ice, could be snow. Sometimes that's difficult to confirm. And then the radar also takes a couple minutes to come back with an image. So sometimes they may get a report of a tornado from a spotter that maybe comes in before they're actually able to see it on the radar. So that's basically why SKYWARN is important. SKYWARN, is also very helpful when they have localized events. For example, around here we've had a lot of straight line wind events. Basically, very strong 60 to 80 mile an hour winds that come pushing through with a strong thunderstorm. They may come through in just a certain section or a certain area and do a significant amount of damage, but that may be limited to a certain small section of a neighborhood. So by getting those reports of damage, the winds, what the speeds were, and all of that will help the National Weather Service be able to better report on what actually is going on all in every location. So inside the SKYWARN area, there's a couple main sections. We have some NWS terminology. We have the net control script, and I'll actually go into that in another video to go through what the script is and how to do a SKYWARN net. There's a link for reporting submissions, training, and weather links. So in terminology, there's a couple subsections here. Convective outlook. So basically, thunderstorms, when there's a thunderstorm warning, typically they will put a risk category on that. And there's actually colors associated with these two on the maps. But the risk goes from marginal, slight, enhanced, moderate, or high. Marginal or slight may or may not happen. Enhanced are usually more significant, and then if they issue moderate or high, those are ones that you really want to look out for significant damage with. Those are where they're expecting very high winds, very good chance of tornadoes happening with those. So when there is severe weather, the National Weather Service issues an alert. I'll show you where you can see those in 1 second, but the alerts come out in a couple general categories. Coastal and lakeshore, that can indicate high surf, riptides, flooding. Fire weather, which we don't get here very often, but that's a category of itself. Flooding is a category. Marine hazards, again, more for areas around the ocean, but there's something that could also be issued for Delaware River and some areas around here. Non-precipitation hazards, that would include temperatures, includes aviation, fog, winds, some other miscellaneous things, along with other hazards. Severe local storms are by far the most common. These are short, hazardous weather, and basically thunderstorms, hail, wind, tornadoes, flash floods, all of those fall into those severe local storm categories. There's also a category for tropical cyclones, wind damage, storm surge, tornadoes, flooding, and then there's also one for winter storms as well. So when you get freezing precipitation, freezing rain, sleet, snow, things like that, they would all fall under there. So if you go under the details, you can actually filter these by type or by their risk. And this is basically a listing of most of the typical alerts that you would see from the National Weather Service. And as you can see, there's quite a few, maybe about 100 or so. So we'll take a look. Severe local storms. So severe local storms I'll go through because these are the most common. So the first thing you have is if it's what the level is, if it's a watch, a warning, or those are the most typicals. There's also emergencies. And then here's the detail of the alert. So you could have a flash flood watch. Conditions are favorable for flash flooding for the in the watch area for the next 36 hours. Watches are usually issued in the days before a weather event, and then if it comes to where it becomes closer to the event and they're pretty sure that the flooding is going to happen, then that watch would be reissued as a flash flood warning. So the warnings are more serious than the watches. The alert itself usually has the word watch or warning in it, just so you know. So a tornado watch would be favorable conditions for the tornado. If you get a tornado warning, that means, well, let's take a look. Tornado warning means strong rotation has been identified, or there's been a tornado sighting by SKYWARN spotters or other persons like local law enforcement. They're usually issued for a very short period of time, maybe 30 minutes, and for an area where the tornado may be at this time and where it may be headed. So this just gives you an idea. You've probably seen a lot of these alerts before, but this is some of the alerts that are out there, and here you can actually see not only what they are, but what the full description from the National Weather Service is on what that means. So here's the risk. So the advisories are issued when the event is occurring or imminent. Advisories are less serious than warnings. So they're, not quite as important. Emergencies are, I don't see these very often, but the emergencies are obviously a higher level of alert than the watch is. So an emergency is issued when there may be indirect posing a threat to life or property. This would be issued for tornadoes and flash flooding to get people aware of what's going on. They have outlooks. Statements are usually issued to clarify or follow up a watch or a warning or an emergency. Give more information, extend it, delay it, whatever. So warnings are issued when it's occurring or when it's imminent or very likely. The watches, again, are issued maybe more in advance. They may go away and never become anything. Other times they will turn into a warning. Weather impact statements. So these come along with tornado warnings, and basically they have wording which may go with what kind of a thunderstorm or tornado is impacting, and what wind speeds are expected with storms. These will usually be in the text of the alert. So if they're expecting winds of 90 miles an hour, they'll say, this is life-threatening, flying debris may be deadly, mobile homes may be heavily damaged or destroyed, home and businesses have substantial damage, and expect extensive tree damage and power outages. So this gives you an idea what they would say in the alert about what the conditions expected are. And then wind alerts. So small craft is, this 25 to 38 miles an hour, gale 39 to 54, 55 to 73 is a storm warning. 74 and above are hurricanes and tornado force, and there are listings of what those are as well. Okay. So this is the net control script. I'm going to go into more detail on this in another video because there is a lot here, but just so you know, this is where the National Weather Service alerts will actually show up, although you should subscribe to Delco alerts to make sure that you get them directly. And then this is how to run the SKYWARN net and record it. Here's the submission details. So our contact for the National Weather Service, there's a local station for Philadelphia area, which is PHI. It covers most of Delaware, a lot of southeastern Pennsylvania, a large area of New Jersey, up into not including the New York City area. So that area is all covered by Philadelphia. Here's their phone number is listed here, their website, and email address. The phone number and email are for spotters if you want to call in or email in a report. If you're running a net, you probably will fill out the report, and then that automatically gets sent to the National Weather Service email address that's listed here. The advantage there is we have a record, and then we have not only does that email go out to them, but it goes out to all the other SKYWARN spotters in the Delco ARES group as well, which is nice, so that everybody's aware. Even the few people who might not be able to be near their radio at that time, they can still get an email. So these are what I put together based on the spotter criteria for reporting. So basically the main types of what we report, temperature, flooding, hurricane, storm, tornado, wind, and winter weather. And under here is the observations that we can select and report. So under flooding, minor coastal flooding actually is not reportable, but you can enter that in if somebody says there's minor coastal flooding. It just won't get sent out because it's not really that critical. But moderate coastal flooding is, so that does get reported. Flooding evacuations, flooding closing off roads or making them impassable. Streams, lakes, rivers overflowing their banks. Water rapidly rising. Water rescues, all of those would be reported to the National Weather Service. For hurricanes, we have the lowest pressure, so that's an important attribute in a hurricane that they rely on. The pressure, the lowest pressure, basically can tell you the strength of the hurricane. And then the wind levels of, Category 1, 74 to 95, and so on and so forth. Fortunately, we don't get many full-strength hurricanes, so these are probably not going to be used. We have check-in and start-ended reports as well. For storms, we have power lines down, damage to structures, damage to trees or many limbs down, hail over 2 inches, hail over 1 inch, hail any size. Rain is not reportable, but rain at a rate of 1 inch per hour or more is. High-low temperature, if they're very extreme, if we're in a heat wave, a high temperature reading may be important, maybe a record. Low temperature. Tornadoes, so obviously observations of a funnel cloud, rotation, actually seeing a tornado or seeing a wall cloud, all very important to report those. And then if there's wind speeds associated, if you are unlikely to be right near a tornado, you can report those as well. And then there's general wind of gale force, so any winds over 40 miles an hour to 54, and then winds of storm force, which would be in that 55 to 73 mile an hour range. These are more typical during tropical storms that may hit us, strong thunderstorms that go through the area. They may get into this range. Winds under 39 miles an hour don't need to be reported. And then winter weather, obviously any freezing rain or drizzle, ice accumulation or damage, sleet, snow is not reportable, but if it's falling at 1 inch or more per hour, or if it's 1 inch total or more in a 24-hour period, those should be reported. So at the end of a snowstorm, everybody could report in their snow totals, and then we would forward those on so the National Weather Service could map out, what towns got what amount of snowfall. Next section is training. So we have, cloud chart showing the different cloud formations, including the bottom right, the ones that are more dangerous in nature. How to measure snowfall, so there's some good notes on doing that. Right now they're not doing in-person training for SKYWARN, but they do have online training, so here's some details. There's a recorded local Mount Holly presentation in 3 different parts on YouTube. You can watch those. There's also some learning modules. You can take those. If you complete these, you can let them know. If you don't have a spotter ID, they'll get you one. And then we also have our spotter guide. This is really good to go through and read. Lots of really good real-world examples, pictures in here. Pictures of clouds that look scary that are harmless, and other pictures of clouds that are, showing rotation that are very serious and would have to be reported. And then there's some weather links to local radar and local stream flow data from the Geological Survey, which are helpful as well. So that's basically the SKYWARN program. One other important thing to note is, as a SKYWARN spotter, your safety should always come first. We don't want anybody going out and trying to chase down a tornado. Obviously, if there's tornadoes in the area, you want to seek shelter just like everybody else. If there's winter weather, don't go outside to measure snow or ice if you're going to have a danger of slipping and falling and hurting yourself. Only do that when you can safely do it. Keep that in mind. You always want to think about your safety first. And then when it's, safe to do so, then you can do observations, do any measurements, and report those in. So hopefully that was a good overview of what SKYWARN's all about. Like I said, I'm going to do another short thing on the net control, so basically how we run a SKYWARN net and things like that. So that'll be another video to take a look for. But if you have any general questions about SKYWARN, please feel free to let me know if you have any comments. And thank you very much.